And here we are. Tonight, we're going to look at the world from the liberal perspective. If you haven't joined us before, why don't we start with introductions?
I'm Carolyn Barthel. I live in Mendon, and I'm a member of the Mendon Democratic Town Committee, and my primary issue is climate activism.
Christine Crane, member of the Milford Democratic Town Committee, chair of the Drinking Liberally Progressive Group, and a state committee person, and a union involved.
Lisa Mozinski, I'm the chair of the Douglas Town Committee, and I'm also a state committee person for the Democrats.
And I'm Rand Barthel from Mendon, and I also am a climate activist and a member of the Mendon Democratic Town Committee.
Not to be confused with that other Rand.
Not to be confused with a couple of them, actually.
Drinking liberally.
Yes.
Okay, people look at that and say, and?
It's a little play on words. Bunch of liberal-minded people getting together, promoting democracy, 1 pint at a time. And you don't have to drink an adult beverage to join us.
Yes, I went there and had my Diet Coke.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
But, you know, you also see people like Uncle Ed there who's not so liberal. Mm-hmm. So,
Well, he's technically, Uncle Ed likes to kind of participate from afar. He doesn't actually get into the group itself, but...
no, but again, when I went down there, it didn't seem like this was, you know, ultra blue only, and
No,
if
not
you
at all.
brought up a question, you would get stomped upon.
No, and it's not Democrat versus, it's nonpartisan. It's really just, people are kind of all over the map. Some are very, very progressive. Some are a little bit more conservative. It's not a group that, you know, you don't expect people to agree on everything. We have some spirited repartees. We've had some Republicans join us.
But it's just a really comfortable atmosphere
Yeah.
to have a great
It's a political
conversation.
discussion group.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
You know, because I've always said I have a hard time distinguishing between a conservative Massachusetts Democrat and a liberal Massachusetts Republican. You know, it seems to be
Yeah.
right in that purple area that
Right, and that-
if I get out to the square states, boy, I can tell red people.
Very
You know,
easy.
get out to California, I can tell blue people. There's like no real debate here.
So you're not
Deep
colorblind at
ultraviolet.
all.
No, not that point. Those are deep, dark colors.
Yes.
One of the hot topics, healthcare. What the heck is going on? I mean, for 7 years we heard Obamacare bad. If we had the gun and the bullets, we'd shoot holes in it. Okay, so now the Republicans, after 50-odd tries, couldn't overturn it. Now they've got the votes, and
They
Well,
may-
now there are
they
real
may have the
consequences to
votes.
what they do, and people are starting to wake up
no,
to.
but Carolyn, they have the Republican votes. They just don't have the votes for this health care. There are 50.
Oh,
Repu-
yeah,
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 they-
they have the
sure.
votes, yes.
If this
That's my
came
point.
down the line straight blue versus red, there are at least 50 red votes,
Yeah.
and then you got the one tiebreaker, which is a bit red.
Yes.
But now, what's going on in your mind?
Well, they did raise. So they spent 7 years raising huge expectations among their base that they would, and they, you know, they danced around Obamacare and ritually counted coup on it for, you know, all that time, and so now they've raised an expectation that they feel they have to satisfy, otherwise their base will get angry at them.
They kind of painted
And-
themselves in a corner.
But now they've got the problem that the thing they are proposing to do would take all the problems of Obamacare and make it far, far worse.
Well, I mean, I was,
And huge numbers of people would suffer from this.
I had a fundamental problem when the previous president sold Obamacare under what I thought was not really clean logic. When he told my daughter, you can keep your plan,
Right.
okay?
There was an asterisk.
Well, the asterisk, I mean,
And-
it's like, wait a minute, no.
Right, yeah.
Be honest and say, hey, as a young, healthy individual, I'm going to charge you. You're going to overpay, because by the time you get old, you can't afford to pay.
So therefore, you people like you have to pay now.
You
so
have to
that
pay
the-
forward so
Yeah.
that when you need it, it's there for you. That I could respect.
Because after all, that's what Social Security is.
Yes, but that's just, my mother's 94 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She worked her entire life. Now she's on meds. She's not paying into the system anymore
Mm-hmm.
because she worked her entire life.
Right.
Okay, I can buy onto the fact intellectually that you tell me I'm overcharging you till you hit 40,
Right.
50 years old. So I always had a problem with the way the previous president sold it. But I have an equally large issue with this repeal and replace philosophy. To me, if you argue I have a better system, because I've always believed you can complain about anything you're willing to fix.
Yeah.
So show me a better system,
Yeah.
and then I'll help you repeal the worst system.
Yeah.
But
Have you seen it?
no, that's the problem. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
neither have we.
I was just going to say, nobody's really seen it.
No.
It doesn't exist. And from my perspective, this is a bunch of control freak old white men who want to repeal 7 years, 8 years of having a black president, that they can't handle that. So they prefer to not fix something that has helped millions of people, but instead to take away benefits to millions of people and give it tax breaks, huge, enormous tax breaks to
Now,
people who
Lisa,
are already rich.
I'm an old white man.
Not as old as these guys.
Well, but close.
And-
I could care less whether law was put in by black, green, yellow, don't care.
But you're
But
Al.
Seriously, when I look at some of the things that they're arguing, like maybe you can help me with this whole Planned Parenthood, because to me it's all a bunch of hoo-ha.
it is a bunch of.
No, when I hear they're
You're
not
absolutely right about
funding
that.
Planned Parenthood, I didn't know that, except for rare places, we actually funded Planned Parenthood. I thought they were just a provider that charged Medicare, Medicaid for services.
That's exactly what they are.
That's what they do.
And you can't charge for abortion.
Correct.
Right.
And
By
that's been
law.
illegal for 30
They
years.
haven't done it, and that's such a small percentage of
Well, no,
what
but
they
I'm just
do.
saying, even if it's 5%,
Right, they don't charge for
You
abortion.
can't, you
Right?
can't do
Right.
it.
killing one person out of 100, it's only 1%.
Yeah.
But that would still cross the line. So if they were charging for abortion, that's against federal law. So I guess I don't understand, because everything I read, now we're fortunate in Massachusetts, and maybe I'm prejudiced that way, that we have good health care. But I read
So
places
far.
like Mississippi and other that, especially women, don't have access.
Correct.
Except through Planned Parenthood.
Right.
That's right.
I think
So
it's.
it-
I think it's just. It's hatred at a level, really almost a tribal level, of Planned Parenthood as an institution, that makes them want to just do something to stick it to Planned Parenthood, no matter who it hurts. They don't actually, not even actually thinking about.
But you know,
The
Rand, when
people
I read about
that
people at
are being hurted by
Planned
this.
Parenthood selling organs, breaking the law, I said, well, then you should prosecute them.
Yeah.
Individuals, if they did break the law. The problem is I've never seen.
Because they didn't.
They did.
Well, but that was the
It was all
problem.
Several red
hyped up.
state attorney generals investigated that and did not find any basis to
Right, if
prosecute
they
Planned
broke
Parenthood.
the law,
And if you can
then I want
believe,
them prosecuted.
and if they had evidence, they would have.
Yeah.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
I never saw any lawsuits come out.
No,
Right.
That's right.
because
Because-
they had nothing.
There
If
were-
you
they
have
had
Planned
nothing.
Parenthood providing women resources to maintain their health, pregnancies, etc., what's the alternative?
Well, see, that was the issue I brought up with our conservative folk. I said, okay, Obamacare bad, the bane of any normal existence. If you do away with Planned Parenthood, who picks up the services?
Right.
Well, they got Obamacare. Well, wait a minute, no.
You want to kill that off too.
Obamacare bad. So I don't want to send women there, but You know, and again,
But the plan is to send women nowhere.
That's the
but see
whole
that,
point.
But
now,
that means no
let's take a
census.
step back.
I know it's hard to understand.
It- it-
But that's
Lisa,
the
seriously,
plan.
you know, we've joked about the illegal immigrants coming in, and you got these kids hitting the border, and they've been put in federal camps, and then they're brought to Milford. And I asked a question. I said, if you saw some child on the border saying, please, ma'am, can you help me? I don't know if anybody's going to turn their back. So I'd ask the same thing. I don't care if you're legal, illegal, whatever. You know, you talk to Jeff Hopkins, who runs our emergency department. He tells you he's need blind. When you walk into his ED, and you can see the pride,
Yeah.
his emergency department, he's taking care of you.
But he's a medical
That's a
provider.
Hippocratic oath,
And-
too.
and-
Well, then, yeah.
He has an ethical and professional
That's right.
obligation to
So,
do
you know,
that.
again, I wonder.
And I'm sure he
would
believes
any
in that
rational
obligation.
person
Like to think-
really say, I want to deny?
Well, there's the
Medical
crux.
care?
Rational
You
person.
said the magic
You
word.
said
But
irrational.
don't, there's not a lot, not everybody's rational, and you yourself had said too. You're insulated sometimes in the legislature, people have been there for years, and this is their job, and they have a real disconnect with what people look like, a human face to some of the issues that they're trying to address. It's everything in the abstract, so, you know,
Well,
it's easy to,
yeah,
you know.
and there's
with
actually a
swipe of
hint
pen.
of what may be going on in some of the comments that have come out from certain cabinet members. I forget who it was, but somebody basically said that it was sort of a comment to the effect that, well, people who have diabetes, it's their fault.
Oh.
And so, you know.
Okay, I hadn't realized that.
So there,
Yeah.
you know, there is a certain element
Cynicism?
of actual, not just cynicism, but actually believing that if your health is bad, it's because
You
you
deserve
made
it.
bad choices, or you have done something bad. It's a
Conscious decision.
yeah. It's a
So I consciously want to be old, bald, and fat.
Well, I didn't
And
say
poor.
that this was rational. This is not. I mean, it requires trying to fathom a deeply alien value system to all of us in this
This is
room.
like going back into the 1800s where
Yeah.
poor were considered morally corrupt, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically there are a lot of
The
people
poor
who,
and the ill. The people who are poor, people who are ill, they deserve it.
But now, when I look, and the part that I guess bothers me, a lot of the states do a needs test, and they
Yeah.
say, okay, Rand, you make X dollars a year,
Yep.
so you can afford $150 a month for health care, and we're going to subsidize the rest.
Yep.
So when I see the insurance companies raising rates by 40%, does it really affect you?
Well, it might. Well, let's see. Does it affect me if the rest is being covered?
But isn't it? I mean, if the feds have said Lisa can afford $200 a month, you can afford $150, and the rate goes from $300 a month to $400, doesn't mean you can afford any more.
No.
That's
No,
right.
I don't, that's right. And furthermore, we as taxpayers are ultimately
Paying.
We're on the hook because we're
on the
gonna,
hook for that other money somewhere along the line.
and that part I can understand, saying we've got to get healthcare costs under control. Because
Absolutely.
this idea, I mean, to me, it's just misleading when you say medical inflation was only 8% last year. And, you know,
Only?
yeah. I mean, excuse me, that's 4 times inflation.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it's okay for everyone in Congress to receive health care that taxpayers pay for, why isn't it okay for everybody else?
But see, and there's a fundamental disconnect I have. Why does Congress get special?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they passed the
Because they
law
can.
and they can
set
do
it
it.
up that
Because
way.
to me,
Because they have a privilege.
I mean, I just did a show with the head of the school committee members, and I point blank said, where do you send your kids?
Right.
You can talk about everything in the world and tell me how great things are.
Yeah.
But Jen Parsons, where do you send your kids? She
Yeah.
said Milford. You know, Craig Consigli, he doesn't even live in Milford, and he's sending his kids to Milford. That to me speaks volumes.
Says I've got skin in the game.
Yeah, and you really do believe what you're saying.
Right.
Telling me that well, this is a good enough healthcare system for everybody but me. Kind of reminds me, we used to go to Moscow where under communism everybody's equal.
Except
Some of us are a little more equal
more equal
than
than
Yeah.
others.
others, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, didn't that the House bill, didn't they have a clause that exempted some of their family members and stuff from any of the changes? The
Yeah.
Affordable
I
Health
didn't-
Care Act, or they had, they
Yeah.
were protected. There was a group, I thought, that was protected. I don't know if that's still in this new
But see, I
improved
guess
bill.
I just don't get it. I mean, at the end of the day, I've read the theories that says Obamacare was really set up to fail, so we would fall to a payer system.
Single payer system.
Single payer system. Okay, but how does that make any sense to me? It doesn't make any more or less sense than, okay, I'm going to give the states block grants. We all know what that means.
We're going to inadequately fund things. and-
Unfunded mandates.
Mandates,
Yeah.
It's like when the state told us, Milford, we're going to give you money to start kindergarten all day, full day kindergarten.
Right. And it's not going to be enough to cover it.
And, well, they did for 3 years. And then they said, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Now
Now-
what do you
Now you have a
do?
program.
No, you're left holding the bag. Yeah.
You know, and a lot of unfunded mandates come our way. And to me, giving the states a block grant just feels that way.
It's pushing
it
the
is.
problem around and not actually facing the basic fact, which is that we have 330 million people in the country who need to have access to health care. And, you know, we have not collectively come up with a real way to do that yet.
So how do you face it?
I have yet to see a better approach than just saying we're gonna do single payer, because I think that a major part of why the existing system, we pay far more for healthcare than other countries that do have single payer systems. We do not actually get better results than they do.
And we have poor
If you look at
outcomes,
the,
too.
you know, if you look at the health stats, so we're not getting our money's worth, and I think that a lot of it is going into profiteering middlemen,
The insurance
Basically.
companies.
and so you know, I think that we need, and I also think that there is a real problem with fee-for-service medicine as well, which I think drives up the cost and leads to overprescription and
Well, a lot of this stuff,
overtreatment.
though, is defensive medicine.
Some of it's defensive medicine, sure.
Because you sit there and say, okay, as I talk to, on the medical
Right.
review, we talk to physicians.
Yeah.
And I remember, while I was running a clinical lab, seeing a lot of tests come in
Yeah.
and wondering why.
Why so many tests?
And it's very simple, because
Defensive
if
medicine.
I go to court and somebody says, if you would run these other 4 tests, can you definitively say you wouldn't have learned something? You can't prove a negative.
Right.
But on
Right.
the other hand, I got 30 years of practicing medicine in this area.
Right.
You know I don't need those extra tests, which run up costs. So, you know, part of me doesn't understand it, but socialized medicine, the single payer system in France, scares the living poopy out of me. I lived it for 4 years. I loved it. I thought it was the best thing going, because we had Blue Cross Blue Shield. So when my darling bride needed to go to the hospital or anything, she was put at the beginning of the line. Whereas her girlfriends, under socialized medicine, had to wait 3 months.
For an emergency?
No, but, you know, for
We
normal.
still have to wait for things here.
Yeah.
We still have, you
I
know,
have
people
to
have this idea that, oh my
They
God,
always
Canada,
feel
they
like-
have lines. We got lines here. I mean, if it's not an emergency, there's scheduling. I mean, to get in for a well checkup, it takes
Oh, but
quite a...
now look at what the market, and I'm a big proponent of the market dictating. You start looking at the acute health centers. Okay, we got one right up here. Instead of going to the emergency room,
Yeah.
because I was playing soccer and my ankle hurts, I can go in here to urgent care, and all of a sudden, it's like getting a doctor's appointment at $30. Where if I go, and again, Milford, we're lucky because the people that are doing the urgent care here are the same that work, it's the same medical staff that work in the emergency room. So I'm getting the same level of care.
Yeah.
But by driving an extra mile, I'm paying $30 or $40, whatever my deductible is, not $500 for the emergency room.
Yeah.
So I can see the market already reacting to our lifestyle. The question is, where are we going with medical care? The Planned Parenthood, to me, feels like a red herring.
It is.
You know, that if you changed, if Planned Parenthood, in my mind, it's my opinion only, had no reproductive counseling services, they would be okay.
They would
Then they wouldn't be called Planned Parenthood.
because
Well, no,
they,
but-
because they wouldn't face ideological hostility from people who are opposed for religious reasons and other kinds of reasons to other people, you know, using some of the methods that are available for managing your sexuality and your reproduction. And, you know, so, you know, and so there's a whole ideological
The whole
culture war
idea
thing
of
going on
saying
here.
they give out birth control. Well, wait a minute. We've tried telling kids, as a father, I really like this abstinence thing till maybe they were 30. At
Yeah.
that point, I want the light switch to turn on and give me a grandchild. That would be heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all kidding aside, that isn't going to work.
It
You can't
doesn't-
just
It doesn't
pretend
work.
It doesn't
that
work.
It doesn't
no
work.
child till they're 30 is going to be sexually active.
And it's not true even among evangelical Christians.
So now you turn around and
They
say,
have sex?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most of them
What's
do
this
have,
world coming
most
to?
of them have sex before marriage.
But you know, at the end of the day, you sit there and say, if you really do not want abortions, then aren't you better off helping them to be safe?
Right, to
Well-
prevent them from getting pregnant by giving them birth
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You would
Absolutely.
think.
But you don't have a community clinic, which is what Planned Parenthood would be if it wasn't giving reproductive health care. So you don't have community clinics. In the South, you have medical facilities closing at an incredible rate, hospitals closing. A woman has a heart attack here. She has to go 50 miles by ambulance to get attention
But
for a
again,
critical
women.
problem.
I mean,
Or
all we
or
hear
a
about is
man.
minutes count.
They do.
Yeah.
So when you turn around and say a stroke, you're losing 2 million brain cells a minute.
Yeah.
You talk about 50 minutes.
The person's, the
Yeah,
person
that's
risks.
a billion.
Yeah, well, whatever, but I guess I just don't understand, because when you say I'm going to defund something, to me it implies you're funding it.
And yeah,
I didn't think we funded Planned Parenthood. I thought they provided a service and they used Medicare, Medicaid.
well, there's a lot of outright propaganda out there that is convincing a lot of people that Planned Parenthood is being funded in ways that it's not being.
So is it
So-
just playing on the abortion word?
Basically,
Oh, God,
in a
yes.
bunch of variety of ways, yeah.
And it's also transferred into birth control. That whole phenomenon, it used to be just abortion, and in the last 5 years or so, I think, you know, it is added, they've lumped in birth care, birth control as well. It's just stunning.
Somehow they've demonized that whole concept.
Yeah.
But yet, you look at your family, and I would think, I mean, I hate to be stereotypical, but the stereotypical person in the United States, I don't know that they've waited till marriage. And then with today's economy, I don't know that you can have 10 kids.
Show me the person who can afford to have 10
Well,
kids.
but I guess that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
where I get confused.
Right.
Yeah.
On,
Yeah.
you know, world peace, yes, we all agree it should happen. And then you say, not in this lifetime.
But so how do the Republicans propose to give everyone health care?
They don't.
Because to me, they are not interested in making sure everyone has, or they'll say you will have access
Access.
to
For
health
a
care.
price.
That doesn't mean you can afford it.
Right.
That doesn't mean it offers you anything.
We
but
had
you have
access before.
Yeah, wait a minute.
access.
That's silly, because
That's what they're saying.
Even if I have no health, before Massachusetts
Yep.
went to the 90+% coverage, anybody who showed up at the
In
emergency
the emergency room.
got covered.
So, and that, but all right, so what that shows is that you have to decide, I mean, the minute you say that, yeah, they can always go to the emergency room, you've actually now already accepted the concept of socialized medicine.
Right.
That you've now accepted that we are not really gonna have a everybody pays his own way system, right? And so now it should be now, logically, a question of what's the most efficient way to do healthcare. And most people think that that the most efficient way to do healthcare has to do with primary care and preventive care to avoid
See, that's the
using up
problem.
resources on
If
research.
I get the sniffles
Yeah,
and I go to an urgent care or to a physician, I'm treated.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to wait till I have pneumonia,
yeah.
the cost
Is
is
astronomical.
geometrically
Well,
higher.
you've got
Exactly.
health care, so
So-
it's not going to
No,
be.
but I'm just saying, Christine, if I didn't,
Yeah.
Didn't, yeah.
okay, and I'm sitting there saying, I don't have health care, I can't go,
Mm-hmm.
so I've got to wait until
Right.
I have
Right.
a
Right.
acute, a fundamental, no, I have pneumonia, not the
Oh,
sniffles.
and something that may not now be treatable, something that is now going to
But
kill
even
you
if you
because you
treat it,
didn't
it's going
catch
to
it
cost
soon
you
enough.
10 times or 100 times more to
Right.
treat me.
Right.
So isn't the fundamental issue class in America? It's about class in America. It's about giving more to the haves and taking away
From the have-nots.
from the have-nots.
But here's where I kind of struggle with that on a federal level. Almost half the people in this country pay no federal tax at all. So I'm kind of stuck saying I'm taking more from them. How am I taking more from them?
Well, you're making it either
just-
more expensive or impossible for them to get health care with this bill.
But if
Which
this-
will make it all more expensive because those people will have to wait until they have pneumonia.
So it's
and
gonna
then
cost
and
us
then
more.
it
And
comes
it will
out of
cost
our
everybody
pocket.
else more
That's right.
because now there will be because the hospitals are going to run their emergency rooms and they're going to have lots of people coming in who can't pay, and so therefore, the rest of us who sort of kind of can pay are going to get stuck paying more.
See, I'm kind of stuck because I saw last month or so, Delta Dental said, okay, the cost of providing dental services is growing beyond what they can afford to charge. So they're starting to squeeze. Isn't that what some people like a Rand Paul or whatever are hoping that if you push it to the state level, they'll actually figure out a way of efficiently delivering medical care?
I
No,
don't know why you would think that the
What?
states would do it better than the federal government. I mean,
They have no choice but to break even. They have to have a balanced budget.
yeah, but there are so many states, primarily in the South, that already get a lot of federal money. All the states that are the have states are giving money to the have-not states.
So like consider Massachusetts a have state.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
We
Maybe
pay
that's
more.
where my view
We
is
pay more
prejudiced.
out than we get back
Yes.
from Washington.
So again, it's still affecting us nationally.
Well,
So
at the moment, because if this bill passes, if the Senate approves a bill and they come together and they decide that they are going to change the ACA fundamentally, we will feel it here in a big way. And so then we will also
In what
be,
way, Lisa? Seriously now. We will feel it how?
well, because we won't be getting the federal monies that we have come to expect.
The Medicaid
And-
reimbursements.
And all the people who are not able to pay, we will be paying for with higher premiums because their care is more expensive.
So they'll still get care. That
Maybe.
If they go to the
are
emergency
we
room,
talking
yeah.
about care or coverage? Those are two different things.
Yeah.
coverage to me is administrative. Care is what matters.
Because in your head, you've already gone to socialized medicine, like Rand said. And it's all about coverage and the profit motive of the pharmaceuticals, the Delta Dentals, the organizations that exist to make a profit on medicine.
So
and
how
not
do you
just deliver.
fundamentally change it?
Just go to single payer.
Take out those middlemen.
But now,
Well, I
Randy,
mean, you need to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you immediately kind of went back when you said, why would you think one government organization can do it better than
Yeah.
another?
Well, I mean,
If we go to single payer, it's one government organization.
it will be, yeah, and it'll have to be made to work at whatever level that is. So I think that, I think that there are some other things that need to be part of the mix, which is changing over from a fee-for-service model for how medicine is provided I mean, I think all of the health economists will tell you that's one of the things you have to do to get costs to not inflate the way they do. And beyond that, I mean, I don't pretend to be a healthcare expert, but I start with this from, and I think actually fundamentally all of us in this conversation do, from a moral point of view that healthcare is something that has to be actually provided, and it has to be provided in a way that makes medical sense. So in other words, preventive care, not just emergency room care after the problem has become acute, and stuff like that. And so you have to kind of start from that as the
But as a
basis,
society,
and then figure out a way to pay for it.
We've decided everybody
And
should
how to
have
manage it.
water,
Yeah.
Correct.
right?
Well,
Although
there
Nestle's
are a
doesn't
lot
think
of
so.
corporations that would debate that.
Including Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they have water, it's just the quality.
Well, no, but I mean, come on.
Flint, Michigan,
I think we have some nice
Coca-Cola out
prison
in
cells for some of those
California.
people.
There are corporations that think they have the right to the water, and the towns do not.
In places like Ecuador, and
And other, and
But they
in
can
the
think
United
all they
States.
want. I think I should be young, thin, and have hair.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make it reality. At the end of
it
the
does.
day,
It does if you have managed to buy the government
That's
of the
right.
place and are able to impose it on people.
yeah, but when you look at that, why is Trump president?
I've been asking myself that
that's
since
Watch your
November.
mouth.
Yeah.
Show respect for the office, if not the person. But why is he president? People wanted a big change.
Well,
Yeah.
people distributed in a rather curious way through the
Almost
states.
half the country, one way or another, voted.
Yeah, almost half the country did.
Almost half the country voted for him to be president.
No, they didn't all vote for him to be president.
Well,
Okay, but to Al's point, he is president.
Yeah.
right.
And why did they vote for him? And I think it's because he offered easy solutions. He said, trust me, I will make everything
I will
better.
go
I
fix it.
alone.
I
I
alone
alone
can
will
fix
fix
it.
it.
Fix it.
That absolves me of any
Which is-
responsibility in dealing with my own government.
it's
with
fundamentally
my own
demagoguery.
interactions.
Is what it
Right?
is. That's the word
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're seeing it, people wanted change.
And yeah.
I mean, when Obama
And-
first came in, now I was not an Obama supporter
Mm-hmm.
until he became president. The day he became president, I became an Obama supporter because he's my president.
Mm-hmm.
And hoping he fails doesn't help my country.
Right?
But you turn around and say, I think one of the things he did a terrible disservice to himself is he set the goals. He promised that he would deliver what was impossible.
They all do.
But isn't,
Well, yeah,
isn't Trump
and
doing
isn't
the same
Trump
thing?
doing the same
So,
thing?
so what's
Yeah.
the diff?
I mean, but I guess that's my real fundamental problem with
But
what
Trump
I
is
see.
taking away. What did Obama take away in his first 100 days or his first? It seems like Trump is just there to take things away from one level and, give tax breaks to the rich folks.
But people will say the same thing about Obama, that he was very consistent, that his message was wealth redistribution. Whether you agree or not,
It didn't happen.
well, it didn't happen,
No.
but
Didn't
that he
happen.
wanted,
But what did he take away in those first 100 days, those first 200 days, or through almost his entire presidency? He deported an incredible number of
Well, I want to
illegal
talk
immigrants.
about that after, but
But I just, messaging wise, I didn't hear or see the taking away that we see in with this presidency right
did he
now.
not add more debt in his single term than every president combined before him?
He was inheriting a complete catastrophe economically.
So are we
We
measuring
had the
that?
whole recession.
Right.
You know,
Are we
that
measuring
people-
that by the debt he incurred because of stuff that had happened before, like, Carolyn
well,
said?
the
or is it-
Iraq War and the Bush tax cuts and
But why
Yeah,
didn't
and-
he change that? You know,
Because
you turn-
he got there with such a huge burden to make sure that the economy didn't completely
Well,
tank.
and you know, and he did change some of it, and not enough, and he had, you know, nonstop opposition.
I was just
to
gonna say, what
overcome
kind of
in order
cooperation did
to
he have?
Make any of those changes.
But then let me put it to you this way. Why do I feel same sermon, different church?
I don't know, you tell us.
All I see is the Democrats saying, no matter who you propose for the Supreme Court, we will not vote for that person.
Isn't that what the Republicans said?
But that's my point, Christine. It was exactly the same. They got borked, so guess what? They're gonna, you know, it's,
I think the Democrats were even though at least willing to have a hearing though.
yeah,
They were,
Bork
I mean,
got
which was
his
more-
hearings.
yeah, but
He got his hearings.
I'm sorry, I'm
He
not
did.
gonna vote for you. I'll pretend we'll go through the motions.
It was more than the Republicans gave. I'm not agreeing that bad behavior.
I think they're both
should allow bad
at fault.
behavior. But I think it's become so polarized, and if the other side probably feels like this is the only leverage they have.
The
is to
end
push
result
back.
is how do you get back to a sane and functioning
Let
system?
me get
Because we
back to
don't
a
have that
Reagan,
now.
Tip O'Neill.
Yeah.
Because you know what scares me the most about the latest Supreme Court? Okay, if Trump really believes he's going to get zero, not one Democrat approval.
On what?
On a new, I mean, we got some old Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so the next one that dies, leaves, whatever,
Retires, yeah.
retires. What scares the heck out of me is if the Republican Party really believes no matter what they do, they will never get any support from the Democrats. Instead of picking somebody half towards the center,
They'll pick somebody who's
way off
ready
the
to be a
right
brown
side,
shirt,
saying,
yeah.
yep.
I'm going to get 50 votes, and our vice president's going to cast it. And then when the Democrats come in, I'll see a wild lefty,
They'll do the same. They will have to do the same thing
To
at that
balance
point.
and
it
then
out.
end up with 4 radical rights,
Right.
4 radical lefts, and the party that's in power when number 9,
That's right.
you know, I mean, right now, let's face it, Kennedy was supposed to be what he isn't, but what he should be. He's voting both sides, depending on what he
Yeah,
believes.
he's the swing
Well, and he
vote.
has to some extent,
Well, they expected him to be way over here,
yeah.
and he hasn't been, and that makes me feel better. I'd rather see something, I'd like to turn around and say, I'm going to force you to make a rational decision. No such thing as a 51. I want 60. And by the way, you can't let the Supreme Court go down, down, down to nobody,
Right.
right? So it's going to force you to deal with the blue people or the red people.
But right now, it really is a problem. How do we get back to
Yes.
a
Balanced
a
approach to
functioning
governing.
democracy where there's actual good give and take?
If I look
It
at
seems to
Milford,
be just seeping away from us.
you got Christine and Eddie Bertarelli. Probably not in lockstep on their political views.
No, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're probably right.
But yet, when I see the two of you together, you show each other respect.
Well, I like Eddie.
Well, but
I
that's
don't
what I'm
like his
saying. I
point
don't
of view,
care if
but-
you like him, love him, you
Right.
show him respect. That gives me hope that if the two of you had to cast votes, you would
Right.
figure out what's best for Milford.
You'd
I
like
don't
to
see
believe
that in
No.
Washington.
Yeah.
Well, that's when the Tea Partiers came over. 2010, I think, was
This
the big
goes
turning point.
This goes way back.
Were you thinking to Newt Gingrich and the
Newt
New
Gingrich
Deal
and-
Yeah.
in
and-
the
and,
90s?
uh,
That's at the
Contract for
beginning of
America.
the end for this all.
You know.
He started really polarizing a lot.
And
But
Rush
also,
Limbaugh
it's-
did a lot
It's
of.
come to
Oh,
a
yeah.
point
Yeah,
where,
but doesn't, I'm sorry, Lisa, hold on. Rush Limbaugh scares me as much as the far left people.
And he should.
I mean, both anybody who practices dogma and doesn't
Well, and
evaluate.
not only practices dogma, but actually spouts conspiracy theories and alternative reality.
But both sides are as scary. At least I'm sorry.
no, I just wanted to say that I think we're seeing that people watch this because it's become a spectator sport, but they don't understand that they're the ones who have the power to make changes. And because Congress has been so ineffective for so many years now, and all they see is contention, they don't think it really affects them. I mean, maybe if these ACA changes go through and people lose their health care, maybe they'll finally put one and one together. But
It
most
is
of
a
the
little-
majority of people, as long as they have a certain lifestyle, they just don't
now,
think it has anything to
We
do with them.
had a Democrat president. And it really bothered me when I felt venom and hatred coming from the right. Now all of a sudden we got a Republican president, and the far left scares the living heck out of me.
And what do you see from?
Well, I see
In what way?
people claiming that they're anti-fascist, so they have to suppress somebody's right to speak,
The free speech.
the free speech. And I sit there and say,
Well,
well,
and actually, there's a history of that. That's not actually new.
no,
Things
but
like that have
now
gone
it's
on
just
before.
same sermon, different church.
And
You know, when I hear what's coming out of Hollywood, before the show you said it, what makes me think that an actor has any political insight or that I should value their opinion?
I don't, who knows? But the opinion I do value is the ACLU. And they say First Amendment, the right of free speech is a right. No, even if it's for Nazis.
Right. I mean, in Milford,
And-
we've had the skinheads come through about every 8 to
Right.
10 years. And you hope, because they have their little fecal matter, their little brochures, and they leave it everywhere. And you hope that everybody will ignore them.
yes,
This time, people actually picked up on it. It's like, please, don't. It's like a stray cat. My
Don't
mother
pollute your
taught me,
mind with that
don't
stuff."
feed a stray cat. Because if they don't find food, they'll go away. And it's terrible. I just want to leave Milford. Shoot.
yeah, out.
But on the other hand, if they wanted to speak, I've got to defend their right to be stupid. I'm sorry, I got to defend their right
Yeah.
Yeah.
to talk. And it bothers me when I hear that the far left is now falling into the same behavior that the far right did that we condone.
I
mean, that
think
we
I think
condemn.
there's always been those extremes that always were fallen into that behavior, and we may be seeing a little bit more of it now, possibly, but it's not. I mean, I can remember incidents of people being booed off of stages and lectures being canceled at universities because of
Vietnam.
Controversial.
I mean, it's
Vietnam.
there's nothing. I mean, it doesn't. It's an old thing, not a new thing.
Well, except that how I have problems
it's-
defending my president when he outright lies. And this is a leadership and a character issue. And whether it's Twitter or somewhere else, he's outright lying. That's
Like
unacceptable.
all the time.
Unacceptable.
That's not free speech. That's,
No, he
Demagoguery.
has a right to speak.
well, yeah.
But he's in a leadership position, and to lie, to outright lie, is something totally different
But
that we.
listen to what you just said. My president.
Yes.
See, that to me is the fundamental baseline you start with. Whether you agree or not, I was not an Obama supporter, but he was my president. He was the president of these United States. Trump is our president. Alienating him is not going to help him modify his behavior.
Well, then we should alienate his behavior. I'll identify him as
Yeah.
our president. I don't like the way he handles himself. And I am very concerned, like Lisa said. The lies are not just spins or stretches, they're blatant lies. And I feel that it's a very deliberative thing he does to either
Well,
throw bombs out and
it's an actual attempt to drain away or
Hijack.
destroy the credibility and reputation of basically
office.
all institutions.
Yeah.
or anyone that
and
disagrees
just,
with him at any
yeah,
level.
But
and
if he does that, he's being called out.
And it's not changing anything either.
Well,
That's-
when you hire Pruitt, who has had as an Oklahoma Attorney General, deliberately sued the EPA,
I was going to say,
and you put him in
that
front
one I
of
have
the
a hard
EPA.
time. I'm hiring the thief
Right.
to head up the local police.
right.
right.
You know, wait a minute.
You're
Well,
hiring a
that's not
fox.
logic.
The guy he has for Secretary of Commerce was on the board of directors of the Bank of Cyprus, which is
Right.
owned by Russian
I was
oligarchs
gonna
and
say,
used
that
by
most-
them to
most of
to
the Russian
launder
money goes into Cyprus.
Yeah, and so And then he wonders why people suspect him of collusion with the Russians.
But are we becoming desensitized? I mean, I read the Times every morning. And yet, it seems like there's
Well, there is shock fatigue.
Well, yeah, I become desensitized.
Right.
Here they go again.
No.
They're going to find one more thing to complain about. You know, this whole, I'm tired of the Russian investigation. Was there an issue or wasn't there?
Well, why
There
would we
was,
think
the
that there?
question is exactly what, or to what extent were
details.
people around Trump involved in it?
It is going to take Bob Mueller a very long time to figure this out. There is so complex, and the longer it goes out, the more flavors and more variations that are having that are piling on this original
And now
investigation.
we've got the right coming back saying, but the previous attorney general had problems leaning on Comey not to call an investigation an investigation. So I'm getting tired of the finger pointing. I mean, at the end of the day,
You
can't-
probably don't get away from finger pointing.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, but not
that's
to
going
this
to happen.
degree. It seems like it's getting in the way. I mean, one
It
of the
is
things
getting in the way
I
of
had a
anything
real
good
problem with
happening,
Bill
that's for
Clinton
sure.
on was he couldn't keep his zipper up. Now, personally, I don't care between him and his wife. That's their problem.
But
Right.
how did that affect his
But
ability to
when
do
I
his
saw
job?
him in front of the cameras with the head of Israel and Yasser Arafat, and the questions weren't about how to bring these people closer together, they were about what he did with some young intern.
Yeah.
That affected what I thought
Absolutely.
was, I mean, I'm sorry,
His validity.
yes. And you could have helped, and you didn't, because everybody's worried about your damn zipper.
But who's everybody? That was the
The
media.
media.
that
But here
was
we go,
worried
now we
about
get
it.
the
Yeah, but-
media so worried about Russia. Wait a minute.
all
But
they
the
talk
president
Did
of the
anybody
United
notice
States.
that he said he's pulling out of the Paris Accords?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And does
Yeah.
anybody think
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
not going to
yeah.
have a little bit of an impact on the
Oh, yeah.
globe?
Well, so whose responsibility is
Yeah,
that? Look at the media, and then are we then buying into that too? I mean, it just feels as though this, I don't know if he's a genius or just, falls over himself.
Inept.
But he really does a good job of, oh, look at Key's over here, and then,
Yeah.
so the media turns
Master
their
of
head.
distraction, yeah.
Yeah,
All
and then
it's
there's
about.
stuff going
Desensitized.
on.
All it's about.
Yeah.
I open up Russia,
Right,
Paris.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, wait a minute. By the time I've gotten through the
Or
fifth,
Russia, healthcare.
Right.
For millions and millions
Yes.
of people who are going to
why aren't we focusing
either
on
are
what
or are
really
not
matters?
going to have
good
major
question.
problems.
Yeah,
Or Carrier, who was held up as a great example of job creation. They're leaving.
Yeah, all those jobs are
Those
gone.
jobs are
Where,
gone.
where's the
They
media
waited for the
covering
media to
that?
leave town, the
Okay.
cameras are off, and
But not only the media. Let's look at ourselves here because where is the Democrat? Who are the Democratic leaders, the party leaders, who are saying jobs, 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 environment, healthcare? There's the three huge issues that affect everybody that we should be able to make a huge impact on the population with. And I just see, I guess it's establishment churn again. That, Nancy Pelosi isn't the leadership we need, we have to try and find somebody else, or this isn't this, or this isn't this.
Give me a break.
Focus on the issues.
Instead
at
of the
what-
horse races.
Yeah, but look what Trump did. Take a page from his campaign then. He had sound bites to the extreme that just said, jobs.
jobs.
I'm going to
jobs,
do
jobs.
this, I'm
He
going to
had
fix
no
this.
intention whatever of doing anything about it.
No.
Whether he did or not, I will give the man credit.
He knew what to
ran
say
the
to the
most
office.
efficient, economical presidential race that I can ever remember.
Yeah, it's
Right.
He
because-
spent nothing.
He got billions in free coverage.
He
It was
spent
all
nothing
free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
compared to, and I mean, look at this, Georgia's 6th
Holy
for
mackerel.
a representative seat, $50 million?
Yeah, I think the poor citizens of that district are by now beginning to climb out of their bomb shelters. and-
Well, that, I mean, all you hear from people down there is, no, I'm not turning the TV on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah,
I
no one's gonna be
remember
there.
Milford election. I went to our state senator, Fat Man. I said, were you responsible for the fecal matter that was placed in my mailbox? Because we got this black ad attacking Fernandez and Richard Moore. Personally, I don't like when somebody that's non-Milford tries to tell me what's best for Milford. Sorry.
Right.
But $50 million, they said 90-some% of it did not come from Georgia's 6th.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
It
both
was a
sides were
special.
pouring into.
But whether it's
it's
special
pouring.
or not, my problem is, it was pouring in from both sides.
Right.
So everywhere.
And again, I hold the Democrats as responsible as the Republicans
Yep.
for trying.
But if we try to say, what is it, public funding for elections, and there are caps on these things and everything, nobody wants to hear it. Because the media outlets, everybody makes a ton of money off of
Well,
that.
I mean, here's the
Nobody
problem.
wants to hear it.
Who's voting on that? That would be the
Right.
incumbents who always have an advantage at fundraising.
Exactly.
And
Under
two,
the current system.
who's lobbying it?
No, yeah.
Well,
So
all the
it's
special
TV,
interests.
you look at
Yeah.
That's
our
right.
local papers. They get a lot, and the political ads are like
Yeah.
top premium price.
Exactly.
So you look at a problem, pick your favorite problem, and ask, why is that problem persisting? One of the good things to do is look at who's profiting from things being the way they are.
I mean, if you think about it,
Right.
if you limit what candidates can spend, now here in Milford we do, just on practical point of view, you're not going to spend $100,000 to be elected dog catcher. So what do they have to do? They have to go out to Senior Center, Citizens for Milford, this show,
Knock on
knock on
doors.
doors.
And actually convince people.
Yeah, and actually talk to people. I guess I'm okay with that.
Isn't
really
isn't
am.
that the way this is supposed to work?
Yeah, I just don't know
You know.
practically, can you do that as a national candidate?
No,
Okay,
you
so-
can't do that because
you
of
can.
Yeah, you
Citizens
can.
United.
Well,
No, but wait.
before that,
All right, so if you look at the size of the Capitol, and if you look at the number of people we elect, it's ludicrous. It is ludicrous that the number of people that represent people at home, the numbers are completely out of proportion. There is no reason with today's technology and everything else that we can't have that number way down so that a person we elect to go to Congress to represent us represents a small enough number of people so it is more democratic.
So you would have a Congress that had maybe a couple thousand people in it, or?
Yeah, so it would be much
Or-
harder for pharmaceutical companies to have a dozen lobbyists per congressperson. And we have to wrap our heads around the fact that in order to make democracy continue to work, it needs to continue to grow in representation. Because that's one of the things that's choking everything right
But
now.
Lisa, see, the problem I have is if you turned around and said, you're only going to be able to spend X dollars. No pack, schmack, slack. None
Take
of
all those
games.
off the table, yeah.
We all know it's quacking, it has feathers. You can call it, an amphibious fowl, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
It's a dang duck.
Yes.
So we're going to charge both the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee to police each other. And by the way, you only get to spend X dollars. But nationally, we're going to buy time. And you're going to have substantive discussions and debates. I mean, I'm pretty happy that I invite a selectman, a school committee to come here for an hour. And I don't want to hear negative. I've only had one candidate go negative, and I just said, this is not what this show's about. I don't want to hear, Rand sucks, but I suck less, so vote for me. Right? I want to hear what you stand for. So in my mind, I really do believe that you could put a program together which says everybody's going to get equal time. We're
There's-
going to have substantive discussions and debates. And by the way, no more of these attack ads and all that nonsense.
This would have to pass constitutional muster, of course.
Now you
And
run into the
that
problem.
starts to be problematic.
Free speech.
Yeah.
Right?
And the fact that money has been equated to speech.
yes.
And it's difficult to see how you get to anywhere like what you're talking about, which I think all of us would probably much prefer.
yeah, no kidding.
As long as you continue with a doctrine that says that contribution of money to a candidate or to a PAC qualifies as speech.
Weren't they trying to do something like that with the McCain-Feingold bill?
They were.
They were kind of heading
Yeah.
in that direction
They were.
before Citizens United
Yeah.
kind of pulled the rug
Yeah.
out from underneath that.
Yeah.
But again, who's voting on it?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
People who have an inherent bias towards them.
People who have won under the current system.
Right, and who can raise more money than other people.
So Al, I just want to ask you a question then, to bring it closer to home. Is it okay for the state house and the state senate to change the bill that the people 1.8 million people voted on this past November to legalize marijuana?
I don't like the fact that they're not, just like the state tax. We said cut the taxes. They said no. Whether I like marijuana or not, the voters have spoken.
Thank you.
And my problem is, I really do believe in this democracy thing. You know, now, I'm okay, I don't like marijuana, that next election, I'm gonna bring up a new referendum to cancel it.
Right, and you'll vote for that one. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's like the Milford sign law. I don't like it. You
It
know,
is the
I
law.
have a sign that I take pride in that says, I support the Milford Police. Yet I got a citation that said, this is a temporary sign. You have to take it down. It passed town meeting.
Wow.
So I took the sign down. Do I like it? No. Now I'm gonna make it a permanent sign. And I always laughed. I said, I'd like to know what police officer is gonna come to my house and arrest me for having a sign that says, I support the Milford Police. But on the other hand,
That would make a good photo op, however.
I know, huh?
I like the idea that when people drive through our town, because, you know, you read the papers and all, and you see all these demonstrations against the police. I like that people see that we like our police and that we work with our police. I think it's a strong statement. But I gotta live within the law. So no, Lisa, I don't like the fact they're playing games, because the voters voted.
Yeah, so where's the outrage? That's my question. You know, where's the outrage? They're tweaking the tax rate. They're doing this. They're postponing. I voted. We voted. Why is that respected? And so
Well-
I think voters have, you know, sort of had it up to here that we went to the polls, we did our civic duty, that's our right, and then it's ignored.
Then you're ignoring my vote. Well, not my vote, but your vote.
Right.
But at the end of the day, whether I'm dead set, can't stand marijuana, I believe it's, you know, the most horrible thing. Wait a minute, we voted, just like I really believe I want my sign.
Right.
But town meeting voted. So I have to live with what they voted
Some
Until
of
we
us,
get them.
till I change it.
If the burden's on me to persuade the next
Right.
town meeting to change it.
but some of us also know how hard it is to get a question on the ballot and to make this
All that
process
work.
work. It's incredibly exhausting. And so what if we decide, you know, it's a great thing for the Commonwealth to have a carbon tax, because that would generate revenue, reduce emissions, blah, blah, blah. And so we go through all that and we pass it and we say, okay, now we have a carbon tax, and our state legislature is going to say, oh, maybe
I
we'll
don't
let
think
it go a couple more years, or we have to tweak it here and tweak it there and send it to committee, and before you know it, it's nothing.
You know, that's like the cut in taxes.
Right.
Which, and
We're
so then
supposed to
you,
be at 5%.
Right.
Not 5.1, not 5 point, who cares, 5. That's what the voters said. I have a problem.
So the legislature, or, you know, there's a disrespect for the voter at the same time that they, oh, we know what's best for you.
but, and this is where a demagogue like Trump thrives, is when people don't have any confidence that their vote or their views are at all respected by the people they supposedly elected, then, you know, it creates an opening for somebody, for a tyrant, a strongman, to come in and say, you know, give me the power, I will go fix it. You know, only I can fix it. And,
Rand,
you know,
I had the same problem with the guy before in the same seat, doing all the executive orders instead of going to
Yeah.
Congress.
yeah.
I really don't, I hate to say it, but red or blue,
So-
I don't think there's much of a difference.
So we've
today.
got a Congress that is supposed to be the place where things happen, that is currently so broken that they can't happen
Can't
there.
have anything
And-
work.
Nothing
and
works.
It's not actually possible for, well, and we may be seeing an exception to that, but it has been difficult for either party to actually implement its program if it won an
But
election.
now the third
I mean, it's different from other countries where you elect a party, and for a period of time, they actually implement their program, and everybody has to live with it. You know, and people get to experience the consequences of having voted.
And that's the problem. I mean, when I was
We
in
don't
France
experience the consequences
and
of
the
having
socialists
voted.
came in, wow, did we see a change.
Yeah.
You know, 13th month, and all of a sudden you couldn't profitably work in France as a company.
Right.
So a lot of people stopped expanding. I mean, one of the beauties I love about the American system is, bless you, it's a super tanker. You know, whether it's blue or red, you get small changes. You don't get huge changes. And that's stable.
But that's not how the world is looking at us now.
No.
And
Well, it's
so,
yeah.
It's hard, because I don't like the venom against the president any more than I liked the venom that this president used, because it felt the same during his campaign.
Yeah.
You know, the hatred, now I'm feeling it coming out of Hollywood and the media. You know,
Well, what does that say to you? I mean, it just shows the temperature of the country about what's happening. And maybe we need to look at that. You're right, it's not fair, but people are reacting because I think they're scared.
Yeah.
I think they're scared about, you know, what's going to happen, where we're heading, you know.
well, I mean, think
And
about
because he's so unpredictable.
the
and-
Nader era, where, you know, there people were voting, but now everybody said, I'm not going to throw away my vote. But all of a sudden, I think the libertarians did better than they ever have. And look who they ran. I mean, I would have felt better if they ran Bill Weld.
Yeah, they had the pick ticket backwards, but
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
But I
if you
think
told me
also
that
even
Bill
the
Weld
Green
was the
Party-
top, I would have felt better.
The Green Party got quite a lot of I mean, they got a lot of votes. There was a special on NPR talking about looking at a few of the states where the Green Party took away quite a few votes from both Trump and Hillary.
And yet, you look at the last 4 special elections. Now, I can look and say, well, who did Trump pull? He pulled Republicans. So now their seats probably came from very strong Republican
they
districts.
did. They absolutely did.
Yeah.
And the unspoken word here, of course, is gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Oh,
Supreme
come on.
Court's going to
Oh,
take that up.
Look
yeah.
at Massachusetts.
You know what?
We
That's
had
where it
Richie
came
Neal
from.
as a banana.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right? I
But
mean,
here's
he
the
went
point.
from Milford to Springfield.
I'm not saying that that's good. That is every bit as much a part of the problem as gerrymandering that guarantees that
Both parties
that,
do the
that
same
Texas
thing.
and
Absolutely.
North Carolina
Right.
will always have a Republican legislature, but now what's different in 2010 and now is the technology of it, the
Yeah.
use of big data and highly sophisticated analytics to make the gerrymandering far more efficient, than it ever was before.
I mean, I got such a kick out of we went around Worcester,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We had to, but we went all the way out to Springfield to Duluth.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was sort of
Blackstone
like
Valley
a-
has been the problem because you had a bunch of Republicans actually there.
Yeah.
So you got to dilute them out.
Yeah.
Because I used to laugh with Richie saying, you go from Milford to Springfield.
Yeah.
What do we have in common with Springfield?
Yeah.
That might as well be Nebraska. But, you know,
Isn't that out by Nebraska somewhere?
I thought so. But again,
tornado country.
the problem I'm having is red or blue, I see the same behavior.
Yeah.
And maybe you're right. Maybe that's why the Green Party
Well,
and the
and-
Libertarians are getting more support.
Well, and not only that, both red and blue feel now that they have to do that because it's an arms race.
Yeah.
It's an arms race. We, on the Democratic side, can't just allow the Republicans to, we can't behave like gentle people if they're going to live by the laws of the jungle. It's that kind
And
of,
somehow
and
we-
they're thinking the same kind of
And
thought
somehow,
towards us.
I really believe we need somebody to say ceasefire.
Well, isn't the Supreme Court
Who would
gonna be
that be?
taking that
I
up
don't
now?
know.
They're willing to look at it, the gerrymandering.
Oh,
Yeah, they are going to look at it.
Yeah,
But I think
first time in, they said, 3 decades.
the country's yearning for a leadership that brings us to a different place. Because you're right, Rand, we're locked into the parties are locked into a
The Supreme
process.
Court decision saying it's okay to bar people from 6 different countries. Okay, so
Temporarily,
The
while they
media-
advocate for the
Temporarily,
rest of
and,
the way.
and they have to have some
Income tax.
connection.
it was a temporary tax for World War I,
Yes.
remember?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I wasn't there.
Yeah, well, I think some of us
That's
were.
sort of like the tolls on the Mass Pike,
Right.
isn't it?
But I mean, you think about it, and you
You were
say,
there?
if Trump came out and said,
Yeah.
no vetting, you don't get in. I don't know of any American that can say, well, if I can't vet you, prove that you're not going to be, a terrorist, I don't want you in my country. That I would support that.
Now, I would
The truth-
be arguing the point of view that actually there already was about as much vetting as you can get.
Yeah, it takes 1.5 to 2 years to vet somebody.
But again, if you're
So-
coming from countries like Syria and all, Yemen, there's no vetting, there's no records.
It's very difficult
What
to
they
know.
say is they
but-
have to have some sort of connection to the U.S., whether a student, you have a job, and so there's caveats to that.
So there's something, but if I just show up with no paperwork, nothing, then I can support, I'm not getting in, unless it's medical, compassionate, whatever. But this idea of, oh, I don't like these 6 countries. Well, don't they figure out that when you say I'm going to ban Muslims, that the terrorist's going to say, I'm a Buddhist?
Yeah. I could never understand that was so brain dead.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Let's hope in 90 days we see a change and we can talk about more climate-related issues and get over this Russian and the previous Attorney General and all the nonsense. But thank you for coming on. As always, it's a fun time. I don't see differences in behavior. Same sermon, different church. But I certainly hope for the well-being of our country that we get over this nonsense. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, thank you for watching. God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just